A woman in her early 60s sits at the kitchen table, opens her banking app, and sees the same deposit she's been getting for months. Nothing looks unusual. But then she finds an old Social Security letter in a drawer, remembers a spouse's work record, a late husband's benefit, a year of earnings that never showed up correctly, and suddenly the question changes. It's no longer, did my check arrive? It becomes, am I getting everything I actually earned? That is where a lot of seniors lose money, not because they did something wrong, not because they were denied on purpose, but because Social Security is full of situations where the money does not move unless the right form gets filed, the right correction gets made, or the right claim gets started. And that's what this video is really about. Because if you're over 60, there's a good chance you've heard claims online about missing checks, unclaimed money, or a mysterious amount the government owes you. The truth is more practical than that. There is no standard $1,570 bonus waiting for every senior, but there absolutely are cases where people miss monthly benefits, survivor benefits, spousal benefits, retroactive money, or payments due after a death because the correct Social Security paperwork was never filed. And when the average retired worker benefit is estimated at $2,071 a month for January 2026, even one missed category of benefits can be a serious loss. So in this video, we're going to walk through 6 official forms that matter if you think money may have been left on the table. Not every form applies to every person. You are not supposed to file all 6. But one of these forms may be the difference between getting only what's already coming in and finally claiming money you were actually entitled to. And the first one is the one many people assume Social Security starts automatically when it does not. The first form is SSA-1, the Retirement Benefits Application. This is the basic retirement claim, but don't let the word basic fool you. Plenty of people reach their 60s and think Social Security will somehow trigger on its own when they hit the right age. It doesn't. You have to apply. Social Security's retirement application page says you can apply online, by phone, or through a local office, and it specifically warns people not to delay filing just because they do not yet have every document in hand. Why does that matter? Because the first kind of missing check is the one you never started. Imagine someone turns 62, 66, or even older, spends months meaning to look into it, and keeps waiting until they feel more organized. Meanwhile, no claim is started, no payment is released, and no one at Social Security is going to chase them down and insist they take the money. If you're receiving nothing right now, or someone in your family is delaying a retirement claim because the process feels overwhelming, SSA-1 is where the conversation starts. And there's another reason this matters. When people feel intimidated by forms, they often wait too long because they think one missing paper will ruin the whole process. But Social Security repeats this point across multiple claim pages. File the claim, then work through the documents. That is a much better strategy than freezing and letting months go by. Source. Now, that handles your own retirement record. But there's another form many seniors overlook because they assume Social Security will automatically compare records and hand them the best option without a claim. That brings us to SSA-2, the application for spouses or divorced spouses benefits. This one matters if you're age 62 or older and may be able to receive on a current spouse's or former spouse's earnings record. Social Security says this form is used to apply for spouses or divorced spouses benefits. And the page also notes that you can apply online in some cases, or by phone or local office. It again tells people not to delay just because they do not have all documents ready. Source. Why is that such a big deal? Because many households assume Social Security automatically reviews every possible benefit category and upgrades them the moment they qualify. That assumption can cost real money. If you're married, or if you had a long marriage that ended in divorce, the question is not whether someone on the internet promised you a magic check. The real question is whether a spouse or divorced spouse benefit was ever properly explored and filed. Think about a common situation. One spouse worked steadily for decades. The other spent years out of the workforce raising children, helping aging parents, or working part-time. That second spouse may focus only on their own record and never ask whether spouse's benefits could produce a higher payment. If this applies to you, SSA-2 is not paperwork for paperwork's sake. It is how you make sure Social Security evaluates that category at all. And once we start talking about benefits based on someone else's work record, there's a third form that becomes even more important after age 60. That is SSA 10, the application for widows, widowers, or surviving divorced spouses benefits. This is one of the biggest areas where seniors leave money unclaimed, especially right after a death, when paperwork is the last thing anyone wants to deal with. Social Security's form page says SSA 10 is used to apply for widows, widowers, or surviving divorced spouses benefits. SSA also explains that surviving spouses and ex-spouses can receive a percentage of the deceased worker's benefit starting at age 60, with the percentage generally increasing the longer they wait, up to 100% at full retirement age for survivor benefits. Why does this matter so much? Because after a spouse dies, many people assume Social Security will simply convert everything behind the scenes and send whatever amount is appropriate. But survivor rules can be complex, and timing matters. In real life, the surviving spouse is often grieving, overwhelmed, and trying to deal with banks, funeral costs, insurance, and family issues all at once. That is exactly when benefits get overlooked. Suppose someone is over 60, recently widowed, and continues living on the lower of 2 household benefits because no one ever completed the survivor claim correctly. That is not a small administrative detail. That can mean hundreds of dollars a month in missed income, month after month, right when financial stability matters most. If this is your situation, the next step is not guessing. It is asking whether an SSA 10 claim was filed, whether it was completed, and whether the timing still makes sense for your case. Now let's shift to something equally important, because sometimes the missing money is not about the wrong benefit category. Sometimes it's about the wrong earnings record. That's where SSA 7008, the request for correction of earnings record, comes in. This form matters because Social Security calculates retirement and many related benefits based on your lifetime earnings record. If wages are missing, your benefit can be lower than it should be. Social Security says you ordinarily cannot correct earnings after 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days from the end of the taxable year in which the wages were paid, although exceptions do exist. SSA also says having documents like W-2s and pay stubs is helpful, and some corrections may be requested through a My Social Security account. Source: this is one of the most overlooked money leaks in the system. Imagine you changed jobs several times, worked part-time during a difficult stretch, changed your name, or had an employer reporting problem years ago. You may assume that if the mistake happened long ago, it no longer matters. But if your earnings record is wrong, the effect can show up much later when your monthly benefit is calculated. By then, the person notices the payment feels lower than expected, but they never think to go backwards and inspect the earnings history that created it. Here's what to check. Look at your earnings record carefully. Do the years look complete? Do the wages look reasonable? Is there a year that looks suspiciously low or completely blank even though you worked? If yes, that is not something to shrug off. That is the kind of issue that can reduce benefits for years. And the practical next step is to gather your wage proof and ask about correcting the record. Source: but what if the problem is not that you never applied and not that your record is wrong? What if Social Security already made a decision and you think the decision itself is wrong? Then the form you need to know is SSA 561, Request for Reconsideration. This is the appeal form used when you disagree with a decision Social Security made. SSA says if you do not agree with a decision, you can request a reconsideration, and the standard deadline is generally 60 days after you receive the notice. If you do not appeal online, SSA says you can submit form SSA 561 to your local office. Source: why is this one so important? Because many seniors treat a denial, reduction, or non-medical decision as the final word when it may only be the first decision. They read the notice, feel discouraged, and stop. But a lot of money gets lost not at the application stage, but at the moment someone gives up too early. Let's say you filed for something connected to your retirement, SSI, or another benefit issue, and the explanation in the letter didn't match your records. Or maybe Social Security said certain conditions were not met, certain earnings were too high, or certain eligibility details were missing. If the decision seems wrong, the practical question is not, should I be angry? The practical question is, am I still inside the appeal window? Because if you are, SSA 561 may protect your ability to challenge that decision before it becomes much harder to fix. And there's one more form that families often learn about only after it's almost too late. That is SSA 1724, Claim for Amounts Due in the Case of a Deceased Beneficiary. This form is used when a deceased beneficiary may still have been due a Social Security payment or a Medicare premium refund before or at the time of death. Social Security explains that the money may be payable in a specific order to a surviving spouse, children, parents, or the legal representative of the estate, depending on the situation. This matters because families often focus on notifying Social Security after a death, which is absolutely necessary, but they do not always realize there may also be money still due that requires a claim. In other words, stopping incorrect payments and claiming amounts properly owed are not the same thing. Picture an adult child helping settle a parent's affairs. Bills are coming in, accounts are being closed. Everyone assumes Social Security is finished because the person passed away. But if a payment was due before death or a Medicare premium refund is involved, SSA 1724 may be the form that decides whether the family ever recovers that money. That is why this is not just estate paperwork. For many households, this is the final step in making sure benefits already earned are not forgotten. Now, before we wrap up, there's another part many people overlook. Sometimes the payment problem is not about eligibility at all. Sometimes the money was sent, but it did not land where you expected. Social Security says if you do not receive your electronic payment on the scheduled pay date, contact your bank or financial institution first, because there may be a posting delay. If the payment is still late, missing, or stolen, SSA says to call the agency or contact your local office, and if the payment is due, it will replace it. SSA also says beneficiaries can update direct deposit information through their account or by other approved methods, depending on the benefit type, source. That point matters because not every missing check requires a new benefit claim. Sometimes the real fix is simpler. Verify the payment date, verify the bank posting, verify the direct deposit information, and then report the missing payment properly. A lot of panic starts when a deposit is late by a day or routed to an old account. So if you're worried about a payment that should already be there, do not immediately assume the whole benefit is gone. Start by checking the delivery path. So what are the real takeaways here? First, do not assume Social Security automatically starts every benefit you could qualify for. Second, do not assume a lower payment is correct if your work history looks incomplete. Third, do not treat a denial letter like the end of the road if you are still inside the appeal period. Fourth, do not assume that money tied to a deceased beneficiary is already fully settled. And fifth, do not confuse a missing payment issue with a missing benefit category. Those are different problems, and they need different solutions. If you're over 60, the smartest move is not chasing viral promises. It's matching your situation to the correct official form. If you're filing for your own retirement, think SSA 1. If you may qualify on a spouse or former spouse's record, think SSA 2. If you lost a spouse and may qualify for survivor benefits, think SSA 10. If your earnings history looks wrong, think SSA 7008. If you disagree with the decision, think SSA 561. If a deceased loved one may still have been owed money, think SSA 1724. Source, and most importantly, slow down and verify your own case with official Social Security sources. Your age, marital history, work record, filing date, and household situation all matter. The goal is not to force every form into your life. The goal is to identify the one form that fits the money you may have missed. Because for seniors, retirement income is not just math. It's groceries, it's prescriptions, it's property taxes. It's whether a car repair becomes a crisis. It's whether one mistake on paper quietly drains money you spent a lifetime earning. So if this video helped you understand where missing Social Security money can actually come from, take a few minutes today and review your situation. Check your earnings record. Review any notice you received. Ask whether a spouse, survivor, or appeal claim was ever fully filed. And if needed, contact Social Security directly through its official channels. If you found this helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may be missing benefits and not even realize it. because sometimes the most important check is not the one you're waiting for. It's the one you never knew you had the right to claim.